Okay, we are talking about the Latin American revolutions, 10.2c, the impacts of the French Revolution on Simon Bolivar. So we are talking about the Spanish colonies in South America gaining their independence. Simon Bolivar is going to be instrumental in gaining South American independence. So everything from Argentina in the south all the way up to Venezuela in the north. Let's take a look at that. So here is Spain, which started the empire in the Americas in the 1500s. So a 300-year empire, getting lots of gold, lots of silver, lots of export crops. And now that empire for Spain is going to go away in the 1800s. And this is actually going to be kind of the end for Spanish involvement in as a major world power. Once they lose their empire, they aren't really going to get too many other colonies in the 1800s, and they won't be involved in World War I or World War II. So this is kind of the end of Spain as a major world power, although it is still a fantastically wonderful country today. Okay, so let's go across the world. And yes, Spain has the colonies in Central America, but we are going to focus on South America from Argentina all the way up Chile, what will become Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, what will become these countries weren't formed with their boundaries at the time, the Panama area, Colombia, and Venezuela. So the very quick overview is that a leader, Simon Bolivar, will start in Venezuela, get an army, and fight the people who want to stay with Spain, and some of the Spanish soldiers, but also people in these areas that want to stay with Spain. Simon Bolivar will use his army and take over, liberate. He called himself in the title of Liberator. And Jose de San Martin from the south in Argentina will go up north and meet with Simon in Peru. And in the end, Spain will be, quote unquote, defeated, and these countries will be free to choose their own fate. Look how close that is to Antarctica. It's a fun little thing of geography right there. So what's going on as a class system in the Spanish colonies? Well, it had been for about 300 years. It was a clearly defined class system used to keep people under control and to keep social order. On the top of the class system, there were the peninsulares, Spanish born in Spain. They usually had the land and had the most wealth, owned the land, had the most wealth. There were plenty of rich Spanish also. They were of families that were born in the colonies, often and called of the Creole class, often of a military class, or did other jobs. On the bottom of the class system in the slave class were indigenous natives of Central South America, African slaves and descendants of African slaves, and there was a class of mixed between Spanish heritage and native heritage, would be mestizo, and African heritage and Spanish heritage would be mulatto. And this would be the slave class. If we were to take percentages, it varied in different places, but we would be talking about 25% Spanish and about 75% either mixed, native, or of African descent. So we still have that idea of a small minority of population trying to control, and because slavery was involved, we will use the word abuse, the large percentage of the population. So we know this isn't going to last. It did, however, last a very long, multiple hundreds of years, but we know it's just a matter of time and where is the only question of when this will reverse itself, and the vast majority of people will not stand for it. A small minority ruling over a large majority. Okay, the story of Simon Bolivar is similar to many people inspired by the Enlightenment, by the American Revolution, and by the French Revolution. Inspired for the ideas of independence, not being ruled by a king, creating a government that they choose, and then ruling with some degree of human rights and liberal thought. So Simon Bolivar was born into a rich Creole class. His parents both died when he was young, and as a youth, he studied Enlightenment ideas. Okay, and he was in Venezuela. At 16 or so, he lived in Spain for 3 years, got married, came back to the Americas, and his wife died when he was about 21, and that is the time where Bolivar said he began politics, okay? And so he dived into more Enlightenment studies and politics. He went to Paris. He studied the Revolution, and this was in 1804. So Napoleon is doing Napoleon stuff when Simon Bolivar is really getting into revolutionary ideas. Napoleon is getting rid of the old class systems. Napoleon is making things on merit. The French Revolution had just happened. So Bolivar was studying the works of all the great Enlightenment thinkers, Voltaire, Rousseau, Jean Locke. He also studied all the revolutionaries that effected change in the revolution in France. And he also studies Napoleon, what Napoleon is. So he studies in Paris for multiple years. And then on his way back to the Americas, he visits the east coast of the United States, learning about the United States Revolution. So this guy is priming himself not just to be an Enlightenment thinker, but a revolutionary. He gets back to Venezuela and he begins his revolution. And it's going to take multiple years. Some people in the Americas want to stay with the King of Spain. Some people want independence. And so Bolivar has to get an army, and he has to convince people to rebel. And he has to fight battles, not just against some Spanish hired soldiers, but against some people in the Americas that don't want independence. So it really truly is a revolutionary war. And to make the long story short in this way, Bolivar comes from the north, quote, liberating places and making them independent. A man named Jose de San Martin comes from the south, and they meet up in Peru. Nothing is really known about their meeting, but Jose de San Martin leaves it up to Bolivar to lead the revolution by himself. Martin retires, and Bolivar wins. And he creates new constitutions, and he has a new idea for a united Gran Colombia is what he called it. So think of it as just all the old Spanish colonies uniting together in a, quote, United States of South America, basically. He was titled Liberator. Sometimes he ruled. There was constitutions. There were governments written up. Sometimes he ruled as a dictator. Sometimes he ruled in together. It was very complicated how he ruled. Eventually, in 1830, I believe he died of disease. And you know, a lot of people in South America didn't want to join the countries together. A lot of them wanted to create separate countries. There was even little mini civil wars about whether it would be a Gran Colombia or whether there would be separate countries. In the end, the countries broke off into Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina. Okay, so we are getting not a united Gran Colombia, but a more divided South America. So in the end, Bolivar was seen as a hero. Still today, definitely the hero of Venezuela and also a hero of many other countries for creating and doing the revolution to make the countries of South America independent of Spain. The Enlightenment ideals that totally succeeded were an end to the slavery system and the ability of these countries to form their own new governments. Now, it didn't really go to democracy. A lot of military leaders took over. But at least they created the abolition, the end to slavery, and the self-determination, the independent countries free of European control. To end the Latin American revolutions, it is totally worth noting that Brazil, that was a colony of Portugal. So Brazil, incredibly large country, today the largest economy of South America, was a colony of Portugal. And basically over similar times, Brazil kind of really nicely asked Portugal if they could have their independence, and Portugal kind of said yes. It is obviously more complicated than that. Look it up, though. It is fairly straightforward. Without major revolutionary wars, Brazil gets their independence, and then almost all of South America is thus independent from European colonial rulers. Thanks for watching.